Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, the 17th February 2015, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host this afternoon, Brian Gerrish. Nick Green behind the technical desk, and we've got a lot of work going on at the moment, both to produce the UK Column newspaper, which will be out in the next few days, and of course in getting ready for the Telford conference at the end of the month, and more on that later. Well, it is a beautiful day in Plymouth, England. Blue sky, sunshine, temperatures a bit chilly, around 5 degrees, but a lot of smiling people, particularly the dog walkers. So what's happening in UK at the moment? Well, perhaps we get a glimpse into the future courtesy of the Church of England. And the Church of England has been in the press over the last few days for literally censoring one of their vicars who dared to speak out on the situation in the Middle East. He criticised Israel, and as a result, the church has simply banned him from speaking. This is the comment in the article. The Bishop of Guildford, right to the Reverend Andrew Watson. In order for Stephen, Mr. Sizer, to remain in parish ministry, I have therefore asked for and received from him a solemn undertaking in writing that he is to refrain entirely from writing or speaking on any theme that relates either directly or indirectly to the current situation in the Middle East or its historical backdrop. Well, what of course is interesting is that here we've got the bishop speaking, and in the background quite clearly we've got the political declaration of common purpose. So we're getting a very clear indication now that the Church of England is not only prepared to promote the European Union, full political activity by the Church of England, but if anybody dares to stand up and criticise both Israel in the Middle East or indeed what is happening with the church, then you are going to be censored. So clearly un-Christian, but as many people would say, Church of England at the moment is being run along thoroughly profit-making lines. Many questions being asked about what the Church of England is actually doing in present-day Britain. So we'll wait for more information on that, and we're particularly interested in more details about the Church of England's pro-EU stance. Well, if the Church of England is up to no good, presumably we won't be looking to the BBC to see what they have to say about matters. And some of the mainstream press at the moment reporting that the BBC is busy hiding its consultants, even though some £7 million of licence payers' money has been spent. So here's the headline from the Daily Mail. And it says BBC blows nearly 7 million on consultants in a year and then refuses to say what they did for the money. Well, we say this is absolutely nothing new, because if we have a look back in time, it was the UK Column that was exposing the fact that the BBC had paid out some £158,000 to the political charity Common Purpose, but it kept no proper records. This was the letter received from the BBC on the 27th of August 2009. It was a Freedom of Information request asking about Common Purpose. In the body of the text, the BBC declared the 158,000, but the crux of it was that the BBC couldn't really answer any more questions about which members of its staff had been trained by the BBC. If there was no conflict of interest with Common Purpose and the BBC, then the BBC didn't feel they had to release the names and identities of the trained staff. Of course, without releasing the names of the BBC staff, it would be impossible for the general public to see if there was a conflict of interest in the first place. So total secrecy by the BBC using public money, not unusual, and a BBC whistleblower around about the time of that letter, so that's 2009, informed both the UK Column and CP Exposed that literally thousands of people within the BBC had been trained. Again, anybody who has any information relating to common purpose at work in the BBC, we would be delighted to know. Many people look at Westminster for guidance. Many people are puzzled at the moment as to why Britain seems to sink ever deeper into a mire of chaos. We have consistently said that, of course, we need look no further than the quality of our politicians. And it is not surprising, perhaps, that George Osborne has cropped up in the mainstream press. And the Daily Mail has picked up on some old film where a very young and attractive-looking George has been telling the public that there are some very clever financial products that effectively allow you to pass on your wealth and then claim benefits from the state. Well, of course, this should not surprise anyone, because if we look at what's happening within the Conservative government at the moment, and remember, of course, that George is now Chancellor, we've got massive tax scams going on between HMRC and international banks, millions of pounds of public money simply vanishing, all under the control of this handsome young man. Well, how can we prove to the public that something is badly wrong? Let's come back to Mike Robinson's favourite subject, which is HSBC Bank. And we thought our viewers and listeners today would like to learn a little bit about the merry-go-round between HMRC, fraudulent international banks, and the companies that audit them. And Economia here picked up on the fact that HSBC has recently replaced KPMG as auditor, and that's now gone to PricewaterhouseCoopers. So we've got these huge auditing companies making millions themselves, and many people now pointing a finger at the auditors to say, what are these companies really doing? But here's the merry-go-round, because Tax Research UK has flagged up very clearly, and as they say, you couldn't make it up. New chair of Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs is former KPMG senior partner Richard Murphy. So here we are. You simply drift from one of the accountancy firms over into HMRC. And as the article pointed out, KPMG were fined some $455 million in the US a few years back for selling abusive tax schemes, and KPMG, who along with other such firms, basically supply chain management service, otherwise known as shifting profit into tax havens. So this was just part of the information coming to the surface about what many people would regard to be a racket running around the international banks and British HMRC. Well, we can bring in another person here. It's John Griffiths-Jones, and we're just emphasising this is the chairman of the new Financial Conduct Authority. And if we have a look at his CV, John worked at KPMG from 1975 to 2012. He spent 11 years in audit and 15 years in corporate finance before becoming CEO of KPMG's UK firm. And he later became joint chairman of KPMG Europe. And then he simply steps across into one of the financial regulating bodies. Well, can it get better? Well, of course, absolutely. Because as the report goes on to say, in relation to the KPMG partner getting the top job here, well, here it is, down at the bottom, because Mr. Barlow's appointment here brings the words of Lynn Homer, who said that the role of lead non-executive director was an important governance role, chairing the board and providing supportive challenge to the executive committee in developing and delivering HMRC's vision and strategy, and ensuring HMRC delivers its performance and customer service objectives. So one could ask whether the customers are indeed the major banks, and of course HMRC would be working flat out to deliver them as little tax as possible. Well, let's have a look at Lynn Homer in a bit more detail, because the Telegraph has recently been reporting her not only that she didn't want to hand back a £20,000 bonus, even though other members of the staff were not receiving pay rises. There was more to it. Well, of course, Lynn Homer here, common purpose trained. She was quoted as saying that she wants powers to raid the personal bank accounts of recalcitrant debtors. Some MPs said quite rightly that the proposals went against the provisions of Magna Carta. So we think this is a very pertinent news item as we approach the British Constitution Group and the UK Column conference at the end of the month. So we have somebody running HMRC who is simply saying, I want more power, even though that power breaches the basis of Magna Carta and, of course, common law. Well, if we bring the lovely lady just back on screen, more is going on at the moment because top HMRC officials are being grilled over the HSBC tax row. And it says that Lynn Homer herself, Edward Troop and Jim Harrer, the HMRC's top officials, will be questioned publicly by MPs on the Public Accounts Committee. Well, if we have a look at the text in here, it tells us some more interesting things. They mention MPs deciding whether to call Dave Hartnett, one of Miss Homer's predecessors, who was in charge of HMRC when it was dealing with the alleged evidence of tax avoidance involving HSBC. And in 2011, this gentleman told MPs that the whole nation probably knows that a department has a disc from the Swiss, from the Geneva branch of a major bank with 6,000 names, all ripe for investigation. Well, of course, Mr. Hartnett was later hired by the very same HSBC in early 2013 to lead a new financial crime committee reporting directly to the board. And this was after HSBC had paid US authorities $1.2 billion to settle allegations that its failure to enforce anti-money laundering rules left the Americans' financial system exposed to drug cartels. So are we looking at massive international fraud and corruption? Well, UK columns certainly think so. But how is it possible for a lady like Lynn Homer to reach such a position of power within HMRC, an organisation clearly doing underhand deals with fraudulent banks? Just where does this lady come from? Well, we have done one of our famous network diagrams before, but against the background of the corruption and fraud in the international banking fraternity, let's remind ourselves of the amazing career rise of this lady. Well, this is one of the key jobs that she had as Chief Executive Officer of Birmingham City Council. Birmingham at that time was described as a banana republic for electoral fraud, where the rule book had been thrown out of the window. Having caused chaos at Birmingham City Council, of course, Lynn Homer was promoted and she was sent into the UK Border Agency, where, as one of the officials said, she presided over years of chaos, where, of course, we had no idea who was coming into the country, what their backgrounds were, or indeed where they then went. The Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration's report at that time showed that assurances given by UK Border Agency officials to the Home Affairs Select Committee about security checks on cases and the size of the backlog appears to be incorrect. So it would appear that the falsification of records was also part of that chaos within the UK Border Agency. Well, what would you do with a lady who's caused problems not in one but now two departments, Well, clearly there's only one thing to do, and that is to promote her. And yes, you're absolutely right. She moved across as permanent secretary in the Department of Transport, so put straight into the heart of Britain's strategic public infrastructure, and from there duly promoted again into HMRC. Commons Public Accounts Committee at one stage was quoted as being eager, desperate even, to find out from Lynn Homer, HMRC's chief executive, how it was that Starbucks managed to pay a trifling 8.6 million in corporation tax on UK sales of a mere 398 million. But not to worry, because Gus O'Donnell, another key Common Purpose supporter and at that time head of the civil service, welcomed the announcement of her appointment and said a wealth of experience working in the public service in central and local government would allow Homer to excel in her new role. We can't make it up. We don't have to. Of course, what we're looking at is a Common Purpose future leader doing her stuff in destroying society and the economy, not assisting it. And surprisingly, GCHQ, funded with tens, hundreds of millions, is now so frightened of rogue international terrorists that they've taken on armed police. Mod police are now guarding this headquarters. So we've got a spy centre funded by multi-million pounds that is apparently unable to identify paedophile rings operating next to the royal family and in Westminster, but we are to trust their information with regard to ISIS, IS, Al-Qaeda and lone wolf terrorists. If you're getting a trifle concerned by what we're reporting, what you need is to attend the conference at the end of the month.
It's the time for action. The UK Column and the British Constitution Group present their Spring Conference 2015. The networking starts Friday evening, 27th of February, running to late Sunday evening, 1st of March, at the Park in Telford, Shropshire. On-site accommodation available at special rates. Visit www.events.gb.com now and grab your tickets. UKC and BCG members, check your own websites for discount rates. Go on, do it now. This really is the time for action.
If you're still not convinced that we need to take action to regain our proper constitution and indeed common law and trial by jury in this country, then have a look at this shot taken from a video camera in a Merseyside police station. This has been reported by the Mail. You can find it online. This is a couple of frames where the Merseyside police officer in the foreground has thrust the head of a young boy into the custody desk. We just highlight it here. So he slams the boy's head into the desk, and as a result of that, the young lad sustains an injury to his chin, which requires the custody sergeant to reach forward with a tissue to stem the blood. And this pretty vicious action by the police, do watch the whole video. We're seeing a relatively slightly built young man or teenager. He received £13,500 compensation. But we're going to ask some fundamental questions here. What has been done to police training to create an increasingly thuggish, heavily armed paramilitary force? And of course, police policy and training policies created by an unaccountable private company known as ACPO. So worrying stuff there by the police, but what are the police remarkably good at? Well, normally it's speed cameras. We thought our viewers would be interested to know that Nottinghamshire, though, has switched off their speed cameras as a result of austerity measures. So here we've got apparently a vital need for speed cameras to protect lives. But oh dear, under David Cameron, there's no money. Well, if you want to drive in a safe camera zone, come to Devon and Cornwall. because here's the Devon and Cornwall Safety Camera Partnership. And we're just a little bit curious to see that the Fixed Penalty Office has now moved to Southend-on-Sea. So we'd be very grateful for any factual information as to who is actually running that collection centre, and presumably this is being done under a private company. We'd like to know. Well, very good on speeding. The police very good on speeding, very good on guarding GCHQ. Of course, not so good when it comes to child abuse. And the Daily Mail has been picking up a massive payout for Joanna Simmons, the former chief executive from Oxford City Council, who of course lost her job as the result of the failures to protect children. So a mere £600,000 going to this lady, trained as another common purpose future leader. We say, don't worry, everything's okay. Well, one of her companions in the adventure in Oxford was Sarah Thornton. Here she is. Of course, we remember she's also common purpose trained, Chief Constable of Thames Valley Police, who utterly failed to protect children. Reports of abuse at Oxford and Cherwell Valley College to Thames Valley Police by an Asian whistleblower were continually ignored and covered up, allowing the whistleblower to be bullied and intimidated. Well, much as with Lynn Homer, what's happened to this common purpose future leader? Well, Sarah Thornton is now moving on from a prestigious post in a private company called the Association of Chief Police Officers, and she's now going to head up another private police company called the National Police Chiefs Council. Well, we're going to remind viewers and listeners, of course, that it was only the UK column that highlighted what was really happening in Oxford with regard to abuse at Oxford and Cherwell Valley College. Here's the front page of our very brave Asian gentleman who we labelled the Good Samaritan. Of course, he lost his job as a result of trying to protect white children from abuse. And here is our other front page pointing out the amazing coincidence that all three of the women with the most power to protect children and failed were also common purpose leaders. Well, it's taken Russia today to grab the headlines over yet more children going internationally. And this is a report on two children from a Czech mother being taken in Norway. Here's the famous words, "I'm not even allowed to say I love them." And of course, this child stealing agenda, which is happening in UK on a vast scale, but also overseas, we believe can be tracked back to the United Nations policies, which are to break down family life, leaving individuals who can more easily be moulded into a single world government. We get further clues from this sort of thing. The European Alliance quite brazenly saying that they are targeting, here we are, targeted groups, children between 6 and 12 years from primary school. So this is the European propaganda being pulled in to politicise children at an ever younger age. And of course, this sort of thing is always coupled with an attempt to sexualise children at an ever younger age. And the Express here, thankfully, reporting on complaints from people that West Sussex NHS has been handing out condoms for children as young as 13, together with lubricants. And if you want to know who would be behind this sort of thing, well, meet Richard Williams, Sexual Health West Sussex lead advisor. And he says providing good access to expert advice and free contraception through the C-Card scheme improves the sexual health of young people in West Sussex. Want to have a look at him? Well, here he is. And if you go to the Society of Sexual Health Advisors, you can see his details. Of course, he's trained in sociology and politics, but is also apparently a trained nurse. Children at risk, all of us at risk as we follow what's happening in defence. And again, the Express here pointing out that China has agreed to sell 20 state-of-the-art JF-17 Thunder fighters to Argentina. This means that the Falkland Islands come easily within the air threat, any air threat created by Argentina. And we simply ask, what is the British government doing? Well, we covered this yesterday, but let's have a look at it again, because here we've got First Sea Lord Sir George Zambellas. He has been welcoming the fact that there is a shortage of Royal Navy engineers. He sees this as a challenge. This is a recognised leadership and management challenge that is part and parcel of the Royal Navy's renaissance. And he reassures people that he is working to meet the challenge, but also to chase the opportunities it offers. But I do not expect it to throw us off track. We're going to say utter claptrap and newspeak from the head of the Royal Navy. The fact is that under Zambellas' leadership, the Navy cannot function without overseas aid. And of course, he is supported by David Cameron, the man who's been signing away Britain's strategic nuclear infrastructure in deals with China, who many would regard as a dangerous overseas power. We say what you're witnessing in this photograph is treason in plain sight. Britain's strategic nuclear power infrastructure handed to a foreign power for profit. So China sells the jets to Argentina to threaten the Falklands. David Cameron gives the Chinese access to our vitally important strategic nuclear infrastructure. Treason in plain sight. And where will this be discussed? Well, of course, at the end of the month, at the British Constitution Group UK Column Spring Conference, we're going to say, your country needs you. If you're interested in what's happening in Britain, if you're worried about the future for your children, come to the conference, be with like-minded people, and the agenda is to take action. We'll also be covering a grand jury on child abuse. Why is this necessary? Well, let's go no further than the Daily Star, 15th of February 2015. Police in Lyon, Britain, quiz warning. What were the police saying? A Scotland Yard official claims police were warned not to question the late Lyon, Britain over child sex abuse allegations. We ask, was David Cameron or indeed Theresa May involved in warning off police from investigating the abuse of children? We'll leave the answer to that to your imaginations. Our view is, of course. Hope to see you at the conference at the end of the month, and hope to see you tomorrow for UK Column News at 1300. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.